There's a guy in Wichita who will measure your grass with a tape measure and write you a citation if it's too long. He's also the president of his church council. He installs home security systems for a living. He leads a Cub Scout group, and for 31 years, nobody knew he was killing people until he asked police one question about a floppy disk. January 15th, 1974, a Tuesday morning in Wichita, Kansas. 4 members of the Otero family are found dead in their home. Joseph Otero Sr., his wife Julie, and 2 of their children, Josephine and Joseph Jr., all murdered. Their 15-year-old son Charlie came home from school and found them there. The way they died told investigators everything they needed to know about who this was. All 4 victims had been bound, strangled. The scene was methodical and controlled. This person had a system. The killer had broken in by throwing a concrete block through a window. When someone came to check on the noise, he told them he was on the run. He needed food and warmth. He handcuffed her, calmed her down, then bound and strangled the entire family, one by one. Years later, when Dennis Rader confessed to these murders, he said something that still makes your skin crawl. He admitted he had never strangled anyone before, so he didn't really know how much pressure to use or how long it would take. He was just learning, experimenting, treating murder like it was a science project. 3 months after the Otero murders, Rader struck again. Catherine Bright was killed in her home on April 4th, 1974. Her brother Kevin was there. He fought back. Rader shot him twice, and Kevin still survived, giving police their first real description: average-sized guy, bushy mustache, and eyes that looked psychotic. That description should have led somewhere, but Dennis Rader looked like every other suburban dad in Wichita, too ordinary, too forgettable. Then, October 1974, a letter arrived at the Wichita Eagle. Someone was taking credit for the Otero murders. 3 men had falsely confessed to the crimes the month before, and this letter was furious about it. He included details that only the killer would know. He wrote, quote, "I did it by myself and no one's help." He signed it BTK, bind, torture, kill. The methodology was always the same. He would bind his victims with whatever he found in their homes: rope, pantyhose, belt. He would torture them psychologically, making them believe that they might survive. Then he would strangle them, often manually, sometimes with a plastic bag. He took his time. He watched them die. Dennis Rader worked for ADT Security Services from 1974 to 1988. His job was installing home security alarms across Wichita. The man breaking into homes and murdering families was the same man homeowners paid to protect them. He knew exactly how home alarm systems worked, where the vulnerabilities were, which houses were easy targets. His coworkers called him the Blue Book Man because he was obsessed with following every rule in the employee handbook. He would scold people for chatting too long during breaks. He measured everything, controlled everything. At work, he needed perfect order. At home and in his community, he built the facade deeper. He married Paula Dietz in 1971. They had 2 kids, Carrie and Brian. He was active at Christ Lutheran Church, eventually becoming church council president. He led a Cub Scout group. He was the guy that you'd wave to in the grocery store parking lot. "Oh, that's Dennis. Hey, Dennis." Later, he worked as a compliance officer for Park City, enforcing local ordinances. He would patrol neighborhoods with a tape measure, citing people for grass that was too long or trash cans left out too late. People hated him for being petty and annoying. Nobody suspected him of murder. Dennis Rader's motivation was sexual in a specific way. Autopsies found his victims were not sexually assaulted. Semen was found at some of the crime scenes, but Rader wasn't interested in rape. He was interested in control. He derived his gratification from the dominance, the fear, The moment of strangulation. He confessed to masturbating while watching his victim struggle. Absolute power over another person's life is what satisfied him. He kept trophies, driver's licenses, underwear, personal items. He called his murders projects and kept detailed files on each one. He would stalk his victims for weeks or months, learning their schedules, their routines, their vulnerabilities. Then he would strike when they were most alone. Between 1974 and 1991, Dennis Rader murdered at least 10 people. Shirley Relford in 1977, a mother of 3. Nancy Fox later that same year. After killing Nancy Fox, Rader did something that shows you exactly how theatrical his ego was. He called the police himself, anonymously reported his own victim. He wanted to make sure they found her. He wanted the credit and the terror. In 1985, he killed his neighbor, Maureen Hedge, demonstrating just how close the danger really was. Dolores Davis in 1991 was his last confirmed victim. Then, around 1979, the letters stopped. The murders seemed to stop. The case went cold. Wichita tried to move on. In 1984, police formed a special task force they called the Ghostbusters because they were chasing a phantom. They had Kevin Bright's description, they had letters, they had crime scenes. They had nothing concrete. Police developed theories. Maybe he was in prison for another crime. Maybe he died. Maybe he found a partner who let him act out his fantasies safely. Former FBI agent Robert Ressler suggested the killer might be a criminal justice student, someone organized and intelligent. Dennis Rader was still right there, living his boring, rule-obsessed life. He finished his degree at Wichita State University. He worked his compliance officer job. He went to church. He raised his kids. By 2004, his ego could not stay quiet anymore. He felt like people had forgotten about him. He wasn't getting the credit that he wanted, that he felt like he deserved. In March 2004, a letter arrived at the Wichita Eagle claiming responsibility for a murder that happened in 1986. BTK was back after 25 years of silence. Law enforcement learned from their past mistakes. They appointed one spokesperson to the investigation, someone who could speak directly to BTK through the media. They knew what they were dealing with, a narcissist who craved attention and validation. So they gave it to him, carefully and strategically. BTK responded by sending packages with crime scene photos and a driver's license belonging to one of his victims. Police used DNA found under a victim's fingernail to create a genetic profile they could match against any suspect. And then on January 25, 2005, BTK sent a postcard with a question. Can I communicate with Floppy and not be traced to a computer? Be honest. Police saw their opportunity. They placed a classified ad in the Wichita Eagle with the message BTK requested. Quote, Rex, it will be okay. It was a lie, of course, and Dennis Rader believed them. 2 weeks later, a purple floppy disk arrived at a local Fox TV affiliate. Rader thought he was being clever. He believed the disk could not be traced back to him. Here's what actually happened. Dennis Rader sat down at a computer in his office at Christ Lutheran Church, where he served as council president. He created the file he wanted to send to police. Then he deleted all the other files on the disk, thinking that this would erase them completely. Forensic investigators recovered those deleted files. The metadata embedded in them showed the disk had been used at a computer registered to Christ Lutheran Church by a user named Dennis. The church council president, the compliance officer, the man measuring grass with a tape measure. Police obtained a DNA sample through a court order for his daughter's medical records, using familial matching to compare it against crime scene evidence. The DNA from under a victim's fingernail matched. The semen from the Otero crime scene matched. 9 days after the floppy disk arrived, on February 25, 2005, Dennis Rader was arrested. 31 years of terror ended because a narcissist trusted a lie and didn't understand how computers worked. Later, Rader admitted, the floppy did me in. He was reportedly angry that police had lied to him about being able to trace the disk. Even in custody, his entitlement was staggering. What happened in court was almost as disturbing as the crimes themselves. Dennis Rader was polite, courteous. He answered every question with yes, sir, and yes, Your Honor. Then he described the murders like he was giving a college lecture. He talked about the trolling stage, where he looked for victims, the stalker phase, where he locked onto a target. He explained how he manually strangled Shirley Relford when she started to scream. He described hanging one young victim in a basement and admitted to having sexual fantasies afterward. Charlie Otero, who found his family dead in 1974, called Rader, quote, an emotionally devoid humanoid with a monster living inside. The clinical, detached way Rader recounted destroying families offered no closure, only more pain. Dennis Rader was sentenced to 10 consecutive life terms, a minimum of 175 years without the possibility of parole. He will die in prison several lifetimes over. Authorities believe Dennis Rader has even more victims. His narcissism makes it likely that he would want credit for every project. In 2024, investigators began re-examining a word puzzle Rader sent to a Kansas City TV station. At first, they saw the obvious words about BTK fantasies, Wichita, prowl, ruse. Then they looked closer. Hidden in the puzzle were the words Cindy, Kenny, and Kahika. Kahika is the name of a street in Oklahoma. In 1976, 16-year-old cheerleader Cynthia Kinney disappeared from the Osage Laundry on Kahika Street. She vanished mid-morning, which matches Rader's general pattern of operation. He's never confessed to her murder. The puzzle suggests he wants more people to know anyway. Even from prison, his ego compels him to communicate the full scope of what he's done. Thank you for listening to 10-Minute Murder, bingeable true crime stories. My name is Joe, I'm the host, and I appreciate you listening. If this listen happens to be your very first one, welcome. Make sure you hit subscribe wherever you're listening right now. And after you do that, you can go to 10minutemurder.com. There you're going to find links to social media, every place you can listen to the podcast, a blog, and every single episode I've ever done. Also on the website, you can email me, like this one. Subject, longtime listener, quick question plus big thanks. Hey Joe, longtime listener, first time caller. I hope you are fantastic. I'm such a fan of this podcast and your new one, and they've gotten me through some dark, grueling days at work. Or honestly, whenever I needed it. I seriously love the show and even passed it along to a few coworkers who were also hooked. A former supervisor got me started because we used to listen in her office together. I was curious about something. Since you covered David Parker Ray, do you believe the theories about Courage the Cowardly Dog being based off him? I loved the show as a kid and honestly still do. Just curious what your thoughts were. Joe, keep being incredible, not just in the content, but in your voice, your opinions, and never being afraid to say what needs to be said, especially when you cover the more racially charged stuff. I love you, Joe, not in a creepy way, but in a good way. It only took me 4 years to write this since first hearing you in 2021. Till next time, all the best, and with open ears, Danielle. Okay, first of all, Danielle, thank you for the email. I love you too. And second, you've just taken up my entire day. I had no idea about this conspiracy about Courage the Cowardly Dog being based on the Toy Box Killer. I Googled it, and holy crap, there's stuff all over the place. So I don't have an opinion just yet, but I've been reading, and wow, it's weird. You would think a chronically online person who's into true crime would have heard about this conspiracy, but I never have. This is a brand new one on me. So maybe at a later date, I'll give an opinion on this, but I haven't read enough to have an intelligent thought on this. All right, that's it. That is your episode for today. I'm off to do more research on this Courage the Cowardly Dog thing. And if you're in the middle of a 10-minute murder, 10-minute mystery binge, don't let me stop you. Keep right on going. But I'll talk to you next time. Have a good one.